Hello and welcome to the Institutions Innovation Council of the Ministry of HRD's Rungta Leadership Talk Series. Today is going to be very interesting. We are going to start sharp at 6. And the young man who's with us is a very well known hacker and a tech geek. So I think the youth in the audience will have a lot to take home. आप लोगों को बहुत मजा आएगा क्योंकि ये आने वाली चीजों के बारे में है और ये ही नहीं जो संघर्ष है द स्ट्रगल ऑफ लाइफ टू अचीव समथिंग इज समथिंग दैट मोटिवेट्स ऑल ऑफ अस इसको इस संघर्ष की कहानी जो है इस नौजवान की इसके बारे में और ज्यादा जब हमको समझेंगे इसको सुनने को मिलेगा उन्हीं की जुबानी तो मुझे लगता है कि एक कि जो परिवेश से वो आते हैं और दूसरा ये कि आगे दुनिया में किस तरह से आप और मैं सोच सकते हैं कि दुनिया आगे की ऐसी होगी और हमको कई चीजें ऐसी हैं जो पता नहीं होती हैं तो इन चीजों के बारे में चर्चा होगी प्लीज ज्वाइन अस एट 6 o'clock शार्प और अपने क्वेश्चंस जितने भी जिज्ञासाएं हैं आपकी उनको पोस्ट करिएगा और चुप चुप मत बैठिएगा डोंट कीप क्वाइट वी आर ऑल awaiting the arrival of the guest and he should be here any moment. We'll start. So I'm signing off till 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock sharp we start. संख्या में आइएगा और लोगों को और रजिस्टर करवाइएगा.
Sure. So I'm also signing off. I'll also log in sharp at 6.
Okay.
Okay. See you then.
Vivek, are you there? Your video is frozen, Vivek.
No, he's signing now. So are we good to go?
The speaker has gone offline, sir. He'll be online in a minute or so.
Okay.
Some issue with
Okay.
Can you see me?
Not yet. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, now you are. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So, good evening to all, and this is Dr. Jawahar Surisetti, and from the Institutions Innovation Council of the Ministry of HRD and Rungta Group, we present the Rungta Leadership Talk Series. And today we have a very, very special guest and a special topic, one that interests all the youth of which talks about a lot of tomorrow. कल के बारे में बहुत सारी बातें होंगी. Learn the anatomy of a digital weapon. तो ये एक इसलिए हो सकता है कि समझ में ना आए अभी की तारीख में, लेकिन 1 घंटे के बाद आपको शायद कई ऐसी चीजें पता चल जाएंगी जो शायद आपने सोचा भी नहीं होगा कि ऐसा होता होगा. और एक युवा अचीवर जो है वो आपके समक्ष हैं. हेलो विवेक शंगारी, वेलकम टू रुंगटा लीडरशिप टॉक सीरीज.
Hello, sir. Hello, Jawahar, sir.
Vivek is the chief geek at Ace Hacker. He is from Bengaluru, Karnataka. So Vivek, let's just in brief listen about your journey till today.
Okay. So I'll talk about my career in brief. So I started working as a programmer at a very early age. I started working at the age of 17. And after working for many other companies as a programmer, I started my first company in 2006. And which was in AI tools development. So that company was the top tech company. I started my third company called Ace, which is what I do right now. And the research vertical of Ace
Vivek, you are not audible, I suppose. There is some issue at this.
Yeah, not very clear.
You're not very clear.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's clear.
Now it's very clear.
Okay, great. So I'll
Can you just
get
repeat?
that. Yeah, okay. So I'll from the top then.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I was saying, I started working as a programmer right from the age of 17. I started very young. I figured that I'm kind of good at this, and programming came very naturally to me. So after working as a programmer for various companies, I started my first company in the year 2006. I had a management buyout when that company became profitable in the year 2010. In 2010, I started a company called Codecraft, which used to develop AI tools, AI software development tools. So we automated
Vivek, again there is a disturbance from your end. Vivek.
Yeah, he's figuring out.
No, I have muted myself, and I can also see the disturbance. I can also hear the sound.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let me know if I go on mute. Does that become better? Okay. Yeah, so now after Codecraft, I run this company called Ace Hacker. The research vertical of Ace Hacker applies artificial intelligence in the field of cybersecurity and cyber warfare. So that's what we do at the moment.
So what was your age when you started your first company?
I must have been 28 or 29 at that point of time.
28 or 29. Okay. And how was your education?
I have no college education. I don't have a college degree. I didn't have sponsorship for a college education after I left school. I was not a good student in school as well. So, the only thing I was good at was programming. It kind of came very naturally to me. And the first 2 months I saw BBC micros that were when my class would go out to play cricket in the physical education period, I would sneak into the lab and I would explore the manuals of that BBC micro, and I kind of self-taught coding. That's probably the reason why I'm also not good at cricket.
Okay, so very interesting, because I don't know whether there is a parallel or not, but I have not gone to school. You have not gone to college. I have not gone to school. So both of us put together, I think we have completed our education.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so for the learning number one for the audience here is, if you early in your life, if you have figured out your talent or skill or whatever, don't sleep on it. If you can find ways to nurture it, maybe that's your passion, that's your career. As Vivek says, he's built up his career. So that is learning number one. If you have a skill, identify it and nurture it. You can find a way to do it. Go ahead, Vivek. Now, so you say that cyber warfare and your company does things like that. But yeah, is this something that takes up all the 24 hours of your day, or do you do something else?
So we wish we had more than 24 hours in a day, because this is something that takes up all our time. So there are 3 verticals of Ace Hacker, but one is completely dedicated to research in the field of applied, research in the field of artificial intelligence, applied research, and very focused on cyber warfare technologies. So when I say cyber warfare, what I mean is, so you would have heard the term cyber security a lot. Cyber security is basically, trying to protect your systems from crackers, programmers or techies who are proficient in breaking into your systems to steal data, to steal credit card information, to launch phishing attacks. That's not what I'm talking about. Cyber warfare is a kind of a digital war that happens between 2 nation states. So a nation state causing actual infrastructure harm on another nation state. Now, this is not science fiction anymore. We used to read about this in novels. We have seen many movies around this, but this is not stories anymore. This is now at our doorstep. It's knocking at our doorstep at the moment. We have countries like US, Israel, Russia, China, who are way ahead in these kind of capabilities, and we are doing catching up. But with what's happening around our borders, this is a mission which has been fast tracked. So we have to develop these capabilities as soon as possible. We have to grow this talent pool. We have to fast track all that now going forward. So there's a huge focus in the country, specifically from this government, to kind of dedicate a lot of resources into this particular field and grow the talent pool in India. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, phase 4, this is one of the mandates wherein we have to kind of make ourselves self-reliant and become better at than other nation states when it comes to defense capabilities, both in terms of hardware and in software. So we are kind of focused on the hardware side of this.
Okay. So are you saying that the skilling in these parts in these areas of Atmanirbhar 4, there are a lot of career opportunities which the students and young people are not aware of?
Yeah. So the biggest problem which we find right now in this space is lack of talent. Mostly lack of talent because of there is not much awareness around this field, and the students who kind of take on computer science education in colleges, their main what I have seen from experience is their main objective is to get into a Microsoft or a Google, campus placement into these companies. But what they don't realize is there are many opportunities that are coming up now with the defense forces. So cyber is being developed by many nations as the fourth arm of defense after Army, Navy, and the Air Force. The next is cyber. So there are many wonderful opportunities opening up in this particular area.
Okay. So then the new things that are coming up, Army, Navy, Air Force is fine, but this COVID thing has put up a new thing. Maybe it is biological warfare or something like that. So is cyber warfare also similar to this?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. The first incident of cyber warfare around the globe was in 2010 with a worm or a virus called Stuxnet. Stuxnet. The official name of that entire program is Olympic Games. Now, this was a computer program that crossed the realm of software and launched havoc on the Iranian nuclear facility. So I have a very short video to show, which will make it clear as to what we mean by cyber warfare. So I'll just play that for you very quickly.
In June last year, a computer virus called Stuxnet was discovered lurking in the databanks of power plants, traffic control systems, and factories around the world. 20 times more complex than any previous virus code, it had an array of capabilities. Among them, the ability to turn up the pressure inside nuclear reactors or switch off oil pipelines. And Stuxnet could tell the system operators everything was normal. Unlike most viruses, Stuxnet doesn't carry the usual forged security clearance that helps viruses burrow into systems. It actually had a real clearance, stolen from one of the most reputable computer technology companies in the world. It exploited security gaps that system creators are unaware of. These holes are known as 0 days, and the most successful viruses exploit them. The details of a 0 day can be sold on the black market for $100,000. Stuxnet took advantage of 20 0 days. But once it got into a system, it didn't always activate. Buried deep in the Stuxnet code was a specific target. Without that target, the virus remained dormant. What was it looking to shut down? The centrifuges that spin nuclear material at Iran's enrichment facilities. Stuxnet was a weapon, the first to be made entirely out of code. The Washington-based Institute for Science and International Security says the virus may have shut down 1,000 centrifuges at Natanz, Iran's main enrichment facility, last year. In November, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, said Iran had suspended work at its nuclear facilities without explaining why. Many observers credited Stuxnet. Last month, the Iranian government conceded the virus's infection of the Bashir nuclear facility, still under construction, meant that switching the plant on could lead to a national electricity blackout. Iran has responded to the attack with an open call for hackers to join the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and has reportedly amassed the second largest online army in the world.
Video is not visible.
There's no evidence beyond rumor. Some have it that Israel is responsible because the virus code apparently contains references to the Hebrew Bible. Others believe the US was involved in the testing and development. The finger has even been pointed at Siemens mobile phone company, whose software is used by the Iranian regime. The most important question may not be who designed it, but who will redesign it. The evolution has been so fast that 9 months after its detection, the first virus that could crash power grids or destroy oil pipelines is available online for anyone to download and tinker with. You can watch people on YouTube pulling Stuxnet apart. It's an open source weapon. And there's no way of knowing who will use it or what they will use it for.
Yeah. So this is Stuxnet, which an actual program that brought down the Iranian nuclear facility at Natanz, and that's what we are talking about. So we are talking about worms, and we're talking about viruses that require extraordinary amount of infrastructure and a lot of money to build, and a lot of effort goes into this. An estimation of a worm like Stuxnet or its successors like Duqu or Flame, almost it's estimated that it would have required a team of 100, 200 to working over a period of 4 years to build something like that. And it's not about a genius programmer or a hacker working in isolation who can build something like this. It requires an entire team, and a lot of resources are pulled into it, into building something like this. So Einstein very famously said, right, that I don't know what the Third World War will be fought with, but the Fourth World War will be fought with stones and sticks. To answer his question, the Third World War, if it happens, would be fought over cyber. And these are the weapons that would be launched by nation states against each other. So that's what.
Okay. So I'll slightly, for the sake of the viewers, go back and understand you better. So maybe in the 24 hours that you are finding short, how does a typical work day go for you?
Yeah. So if you have seen the video, it talks about a digital weapon which is launched from one state to the other. Now the entire anatomy of this digital weapon is very similar to a missile. There is a dropper, there is a delivery system, and there is a payload. So by dropper we mean a program that delivers this virus to the destination. A guidance system is where we control how this digital weapon is delivered, and the payload is the actual program that basically causes havoc on any PLC that this has been deployed against. So a typical workday for my team would look like designing these various components of the system. We have something called as the red network. So basically, when something is designed, exactly like when you're designing maybe when you're working on a real virus or a bacteria, it cannot escape the lab. So similarly, this program cannot escape the realms of our physical infrastructure, so and kind of manifest outside the world. So there's something called as the red network, where the entire system is tested before it can be deployed. So the normal working day would look like any other programmer's working day when you're designing this kind of system, when you're writing code, when you're testing it. But instead of writing an application, a commercial application, what you're doing is you're writing you're designing and writing a digital weapon. You're designing it, you're writing code, and you're testing it day in and day out. So that's what the day looks like. Also, there's something that this video mentioned, which is called as a zero-day attack. And any virus, any powerful virus in this world would exploit at least one of the zero-day attack. A zero-day attack basically depends upon a vulnerability in the operating system, which is not yet known either to the company or to the programmers outside. And this vulnerability is utilized for that virus to infect the system. A digital weapon could use multiple of these 0 days, but searching for these 0 days is a very different skill set in itself. You have to be on, because these 0 days are traded for millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So you have to be on the dark net, trying to kind of see what's going on over there. You have to be on various hacker forums to figure out what kind of vulnerabilities are there, how they are being traded, and be up to date about what's happening out there in the hacker world, so that these weapons can take advantage of things like that. So you're on 24/7. So there are teams which are working in 3 shifts around the clock and in different time zones, so that so there's no off button when you're working on something like this. It just goes on and on around the clock.
So assuming कि अगर ऐसा कल होगा कि there is cyber war and somebody attacks us or we attack someone, क्या असर हो सकता है उसका? What will be the effects?
So there is a scenario called the fire sale. Fire sale is a 3-stage coordinated attack on a country's transportation, telecommunication, financial and utilities infrastructure. So ये fire sale was actually shown in a movie called Die Hard 4. So that was science fiction, but as I said, it's not science fiction anymore. So अगर cyber warfare हुआ 2 states के बीच में, तो specifically infrastructure grids will be attacked. So electricity will be grids will be attacked, so that your electricity systems come down. Your transportation services will be affected. Your banking systems will be brought down. And imagine in the era of a pandemic, जहाँ पे this virus has shown that that humans का basic necessity हम लोग का रोटी कपड़ा मकान, 4th internet. अगर in this pandemic kind of situation, if we didn't had internet, there would have been massive chaos in the country. Imagine if a cyber warfare was to happen in this situation and the infrastructure was brought down, where your internet services are affected. That's enough to cause large scale chaos on the streets, and to create a very leaderless environment, because our leaders are not able to communicate, down the communication structure. So that's the threat of something like a cyber warfare happening.
In terms of the world, दुनिया भर में अगर देखा जाए तो आपने 4-5 देशों का नाम लिया. Where does India stand? इंडिया क्या 10वें टॉप 10 में आता है?
So exact ranking तो बताना बहुत मुश्किल है, but we are playing a catch-up game right now. The first 4-5 are very evident. US, Israel, Russia, China. They right now Australia, UK, and Germany are building big-time capabilities, and we kind of fall behind them. Our technologies right now also are kind of borrowed mostly from Israel and from US. So you would have heard of US PRISM system, which Edward Snowden kind of We have something similar called Netra, but it's not as advanced as such. But something has changed right now. What's happened is that the kind of focus we needed to have from many years back, which we didn't have earlier on this particular field, this has been put on the fast track. So a lot of focus is there now on developing cyber warfare capabilities, both offensive and defensive. So we aim to match to the biggest cyber powers in the world, and it's not just that we want to match up to them, we want to become better at it. We want to be a superpower when it comes to cyber. So now we have those infrastructures and that kind of backing up coming in the country at a very large pace.
Okay. आपने एक word use किया, which is borrowed.
Yes.
हाँ, क्या हम वो capabilities खुद नहीं develop कर सकते हमारे युवा?
So this is the main aim कि हमारे युवा को motivate करना पड़ेगा, encourage करना पड़ेगा, and for them उनको बताना पड़ेगा कि this type of field is an emerging field, और there are a lot of opportunities there. अभी तक नहीं था. अभी तक हम लोग we have all the students were focused on, as I said, getting good jobs in big companies. Abhi that kind of money is available is going to be available with cyber technologies, with cyber industries. The skill set that is required needs to be developed. If let's say for right now a student wants to join the defense forces with cyber, she will be clueless as to how to get started. What is my first step? Kya karu main to get into something like that? What skills do I need to develop? Kaise apply kare iske liye? So the first step is to focus on the students in engineering colleges and in other parts of the country, to make them aware of this emerging field, to do whatever it takes to develop that kind of skill set, and develop a skill set, creme de la creme, like the best of the best, give them whatever resources they might require, and build these capabilities in-house, starting with education, starting with focus on students. It's a long-term plan, but it's a very solid, very strategically thought through plan, and we hope to get there sooner than later. But focus on students and education is the first thing that we need to do.
Okay, तो आपका कहने का मतलब है कि educational institutions, especially higher and technical educational institutions, को बच्चों को cyber warfare में skills develop करके फिर उनको आगे का रास्ता दिखाना पड़ेगा. That is the starting point.
Exactly. दो चीजें होनी चाहिए. एक है कि टेक्निकल एजुकेशन को इंस्टीट्यूट्स को ये कोर्सेज लॉन्च करने पड़ेंगे और बच्चों को उसमें सिखाना पड़ेगा. देन मेनी अदर थिंग्स विल फॉलो. जैसे यूएस में एक कंपटीशन होता है डेफकॉन. डेफकॉन में क्या होता है कि it's a hacker conference where a lot of hackers from the country in the US come together and they work on real life problem. So for example, like a self-driving car like Tesla will be made available, and they will the competition will be to hack into the car to be able to control the car remotely. And the NSA and Pentagon, they go to DEF CON and they hire from competitions like DEF CON. You will see that happening in India very, very soon. हम लोग भी इस तरह के with association with, let's say, Rungta, who has a lot of infrastructure and brain power, we will want to kind of tie up with institutes like Rungta College of Engineering to kind of set up these competitions and conduct these competitions where we can identify this talent pool and kind of take it on from there. Actually, there's a competition which we used to do. Abhi COVID के लिए वो postpone हो गया. It's called the Janmashtami hack. 11th of August को होने वाला था इस साल. So basically competition में क्या होता है कि we suspend a dahi handi 1 meter above the ground, and the competition is that you have to make an autonomous robot, which you are not controlling with your a human is not controlling the robot. The robot is autonomous. You have programmed the robot in such a way that it identifies the target itself, and it either punches, punctures, or throws a projectile at the dahi handi to break the dahi handi. So once you program that kind of a robot, you have to let it go, and it needs to do its job all by its own. So we can do, we would have started this year, but we will start now. जब थोड़ा ये pandemic का थोड़ा situation normal हो जाएगा, we'll start with these kind of things.
So for the listeners, जो बच्चे सुन रहे हैं या उनके माँ बाप सुन रहे हैं या टीचर्स सुन रहे हैं, ये एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग पहलू इन्होंने आज बताया कि हम लोग क्या है भेड़ चाल में लगे रहते हैं कि यही करो यही करो यही करो. There are more things to do than we have ever imagined. तो कुछ नया सोचने के लिए भी हम अगर प्रेरित कर सके हमारे बच्चों को तो बेहतर होगा. वो पुरानी भेड़ चाल बहुत हो गया है. हाँ, things are changing now. तो लेट्स लुक फॉर फ्रेश आइडियाज. बच्चों में कोई तकलीफ नहीं होती, वो सोचने के लिए तैयार होते हैं. मैंने देखा है रुंगटा में रूबी बिजनेस इंक्यूबेटर, रूबी जो है इट्स ए बिजनेस इंक्यूबेटर ऑफ रुंगटा, और नए आइडियाज लेके बच्चे आते हैं. गवर्नमेंट के जो यानी स्टार्टअप इंडिया के जितने कॉम्पिटिशंस में पार्ट लेते हैं जीतते हैं. तो आई थिंक व्हाई नॉट ट्राई समथिंग न्यू. आई थिंक दिस इज फॉर द मैनेजमेंट ऑफ रुंगटा आल्सो टू लुक इनटू इट. हेलो
जवाब सर, वन म्यूट.
या अगर हम लोग 24 घंटे काम करते हैं तो स्ट्रेस हाई होगा. तो आप लोग अपना एंटरटेनमेंट कैसे देखते हो?
So as I said कि हम लोग so there's a lot of number of people which are divided into shifts. हर एक टीम को 8 घंटे 9 घंटे ही काम करना है. The lot of importance is given to mental health. Lot of importance is given to your own time, so that there is a work-life balance, self-improvement. Whatever you want to do. So the way this entire thing is structured is exactly like how an army division would be structured, wherein over stress, you're already in a very high stress job, so we don't want to kind of add on to that. So teams are divided into shifts. They're working on all time zones. But personal growth or personal happiness, this is something which is kind of very important. You perform your best when you are just a very happy person. अंदर से अगर if somebody is happy, he or she will be able to contribute even better. Code quality, for example, is very important in this kind of area. So, and this is a very typical geek culture. So you'll find at our place people playing Xbox or PSP, Call of Duty, Halo, all the time. But that's the kind of thing we love also doing.
Coming back to the same. So smartphone we have in our hands, and more so during this COVID period, everything is digital. So the children also have access to smartphones, and the apps that we use, we give permissions. How risky is it in this way?
So see, any app for that matter is risky in the sense that there is nothing like a foolproof app. When specifically it requires you to share data, one of the things which you will notice is that once you install the app, we are very eager to get moving with the app. So once the license is presented, we just say, I agree, and we go on. Is our location data, our contact information, our microphone, our camera, and a lot of other kind of metadata. What you have to keep in consideration is the who is using your data and for what purposes. So for example, if my data is going out to a nation, let's say I'm using a particular app where the servers are in a nation which is not really regarded for its data policies, I should be very concerned of using that particular application. If my data, I'm using a data with a company which is not, which does not have transparent policies or good data protection policies for its user, then again I should be very concerned. So without calling out any names, you would have seen some campaigns during these times to uninstall some apps from our mobile phones. Now those are not unfounded. Those are not unfounded fears, because these are nation states which do tend to use data in not so very transparent and ethical manner. So you have to see, you have to figure out or compute or guesstimate the intent of such nation states and such companies whose application you are using, rather than question the intention behind Arogya Setu app and questioning our own government. We should question why we are using this particular social media application when I might have a lot of options available. If I turn this social media application off, I have other options available, or try to use something that's built in-house. So where the servers are located, the kind of reputation the nation state or the company has, and the intent is something I would request all the users to kind of look into before they blindly start to use the application.
So you've already told us that the technical students in colleges should be looking at this as an option. Is there any other option for non-technical students also?
Absolutely. See, like how imagine and let's take an example of an Indian army, right? You have jawans, you have captains, you have majors, you have major generals. Some people are good as with hand-to-hand combat. Others are good with strategy and planning. Others are good with logistics. Some have extreme good talent, engineering talent for maintenance. No matter what tanks you buy and what guns you have, what jet planes you get, you have to have immense knowledge about all the areas around that infrastructure to be able to make that infrastructure work very well. So it's not just about programmers and hackers. You need good project management skills when it comes to building and maintaining and using this kind of infrastructure whenever the need be. So there is a lot of scope for everybody. It's not just about programming. If you are very good with project planning, if you're very good with strategy formation, if you're very good with logistics, if you're very good with just in general maintenance, there are a lot of streams that you can get into. At the end of the day, all of this comes together, and all of us have to join forces to make this work.
Okay. So the risk जो दिखता है कि in the case of cyber warfare, जैसे कि nuclear power, if it is in wrong hands, as we have seen in the case of Pakistan, कि rogue state माना गया है और risk हमेशा खड़ा रहता है कि कब वो nuclear bomb छोड़ देगा. Cyber warfare के साथ भी same kind of situation नहीं हो सकता है क्या?
The same situation, but the thing is, the risk for a nation against Pakistan is more of a threat to a nation which doesn't have a deterrent. So, for example, a state which does not have a nuclear warhead, they are at more risk from a nation which actually has. So, when you develop a capability, you have to look at both things. You have to look at an offensive capability and a defensive capability. If a nation state which is not friendly with India at the moment has cyber warfare capability and I don't, then I am at a lot more risk than if I at least have defensive capability. And in politics, there is no saying today my friend, tomorrow my enemy. So if I don't have these kind of capabilities, and I think I'm a very friendly nation, I'm friends with all of the globe, that political scenario may not be the same tomorrow. It can very quickly change. And instead of any other nation launching a nuclear weapon against me, the first thing that is going to be launched against me is going to be a digital weapon, because over there it's extremely difficult to track. The loss of life is not that evident, but it does happen. If your electricity is gone and somebody's on a ventilator in the hospital, his or her life is at risk. But it is very difficult to pinpoint as to who was the culprit behind it. So cyber warfare is more of a threat, I would say, than an actual war happening between two states in the kind of world which we live in.
So as a layman, I have still that doubt कि अगर ऐसा कहते हैं कि वुहान से जो शुरू हुआ था कोरोना वायरस, can that also be a part of the cyber warfare?
See, biological warfare and cyber warfare are two different things. One happens in the physical realm, the other starts off as a technology attack, but causes the realm of software and causes what we call comparable harm. If let's say a biological war or a actual war was supposed to happen, in a cyber warfare, if I have comparable harm happening, if let's say in a biological warfare, if 100,000 people die because of a chemical agent, can cyber warfare cause that kind of harm? And the answer is yes, or beyond. If through a cyber warfare, I take down pipelines, if I cut off electricity connections, if I bring down your banking system, the loss of life will be very tangible. If hospitals don't have electricity, or if I don't have my banking system up and running to pay, or my pipeline starts to erupt, there's going to be actual loss of life. So cyber warfare is going to cause comparable harm when compared to a biological warfare or compared to a conventional warfare. So all these three are a big possibility whenever it comes to any war kind of a situation.
Okay, so again, coming back to where we started, for a student, if the government says Atmanirbhar Bharat and then made in India, make in India for the defense equipment also, and so with cyber warfare, what are the companies that seem to be making a foray into this, maybe Indian or outsiders?
Yeah, so right now we have this environment just being set up. So the entities which are at the moment in India solely responsible for this kind of infrastructure is DRDO. But going forward, now you will see that our policy of privatization in defense has just started. And this is the first step forward where awareness has to be kicked in. And now you are going to see a lot of investments being made by private venture capitalist firms or hedge funds, or even the direct investment arm of the government of India into setting up private companies in the field of cybersecurity and cyber warfare. In the US also, there is only few companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin who are private military contractors. In India, we don't have that kind of a system. This has just been opened up. The entities which are actually going to front end this are going to be technical education entities, because the responsibility of growing that talent in-house would fall on them. You can have millions and billions of dollars of investments available from a hedge fund or from a VC, but if you don't have the talent pool in your own country, what are you going to do with that kind of money being available? So the first line of defense actually, or the first entities which are going to forefront this, are going to be engineering colleges in across the country, who would first have to grow this kind of talent pool in India, and then so that all the investment that is made available in the country for this goes into building up something. So the first thing which we require is talent to be grown in this particular field.
So you are saying this is a long-term thing.
This is
this is a long-term thing. So anybody from the listeners now who, let's say, has just completed his engineering or whatever, what should be the roadmap for him to get into such kind of careers?
So one thing is that in this particular field, what you first comes out is like, if you have a passion for programming and you're honing that passion in by taking part in coding competitions or hackathons, for example, right? You have to look at a programming from the not as an art form. So I'll just give you an example. So for example, with the current programming languages, there's so many abstraction layers of abstraction that is built in. When I divide a number, let's say by 2, I don't care what's happening inside the machine. I don't care about how the bits and bytes move. I just know that there's an operator, a division operator, and I can divide a number by 2 and I get the result. When you start to think about making a career in a field like this, you need to know exactly how the bits and the bytes move in that machine universe. So for example, in this case, if I want to, all a division operator does is it moves a bit, it does an arithmetic right shift on. So for example, 16 is in binary is 10000. If I do a right shift and I drop the rightmost bit, it becomes 1000, which is 8. So when I divide something using a division operator, I know how the bits and bytes are moving on my local machine. So if you are a programmer, or if you're in an engineering course who's doing his B, for example, in computer science, you have to start paying. You have to open the hood of the system and see how your programs are working at the lowest level. So you understand the intersection of your programs with the actual machine, because that kind of in-depth knowledge will be required when you're trying to be a cyber warfare or a artificial intelligence programmer. So that's the first step. That start to tinker with your program, start to look beneath the hood, go in as depth as possible. Second thing is I would tell them to, so there are many coding competitions and online and on-site and a lot of hackathons that happen these days. The reason I'm asking them to start participating in those is because those are few channels from where one can figure out if you are into programming for the passion, or if you're into programming because you wanted to get a job. Like, your friend or your brother, got into IT and is making a lot of money because he has a very high salary package. When you start to compete on these platforms, there is a way to kind of figure out between these two breeds of programmers. So start participating in these competitions, and you'll also kind of get better at it. The fundamentals never go. Like, for example, the students even these days, they learn a programming language. So what they'll do is they'll say that, Java is in fashion, so I'm going to learn Java because it can get me this kind of a job. Python is in fashion because that is why I'm going to learn Python. But what they fail to recognize is at the end of the day, you will be a great programmer if you have a extremely good knowledge of data structures and algorithms. Programming languages are just a syntactic layer over these fundamentals. You can learn any programming language in a matter of 3 weeks or 4 weeks if your fundamentals of data structures and algorithms are pretty strong. You can design algorithms and you can do algorithm analysis. So that is one area that you need to focus on, irrespective of if you want to get into cybersecurity or cyber warfare or not. You are just going to be a very good programmer if you concentrate on developing your skill set in these very fundamental sciences.
Okay, so I think we are nearing to the end. So I'll go back to your personal this thing. Bangalore is affected by COVID. So is it that any research or work on cyber warfare is going to slow down because Bangalore is affected? So
the research work on this front has increased many folds. Now that we need these capabilities much before what the strategy or the plan earlier was. The kind of situation which we have on the borders with two of our neighbors, it has fast-tracked research into it on multifold. The resources that have been pumped into it now, the way the infrastructure is going, the research work, the design work, the development work is growing at a massive pace now. This is a long-term program, but it is fast-tracked. We need these capabilities sooner than later. We need them as of yesterday, actually. And as I said earlier, we don't want to play catch-up. We want to be the best in the world. We want to become a cyber superpower. And to do that, the government is doing whatever it takes that needs to be done in terms of money, resources, time, effort. So the pandemic has not caused a slowdown. It has just accelerated the entire process.
Yeah, lovely. So at least we hear of something that is accelerated, at least in these times. So one last thing before we close, we have 3 minutes left, and that's any university that you know of which runs a course on cyber warfare in India?
No, not as of now. There are some universities, some IITs, and some who run a very short course on cyber security, but not on cyber warfare as such. We are all actually hoping that institutions like Roonta and all can actually take this lead. What also we have observed is that the talent actually, there's more talent lying in tier 2 cities than tier 1. And that needs to be tapped into. The potential over there is massive. So, it is going to be, Roonta already has that kind of infrastructure. And it already has that kind of a brain power to be able to kind of hone and foster this kind of talent. But it needs to happen now.
So you should not delay this. For all the listeners, the group and the institutions, the Innovation Council, we need to push the envelope here and put it on fast track as the government itself has done it. And I think what we can do is that the ATLs which are functioning at school levels and the Atal Innovation Mission which is happening at college levels, we'll need to either push that because that's an organized setup already and thousands of them are already there in schools and colleges. That can be a way forward if we can push these kind of ideas there. It's a very warm thought that you have given us and a future fast forward thing that you have given us. We have had in Rungta Leadership Talk Series 2, Ambassador Deepak Vora, who had mentioned in his mega trends, global mega trends, something to the same effect that what you have said. But since he is not a technical person, he is only broad-based it. We have now gone in depth today and understood what cyber warfare is, what phishing is, what can mobile data or what is the security that you have to look at in mobile data. Thank you very much, Vivek, for the time given. We would also, from the Rungta group, I think if not promise, make sincere efforts to get into the field that you are saying for the welfare and betterment of the students. This looks to be a very good option for us and a good futuristic option for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you very much.